Hello, this is Silvia Pavoni, investment editor of The Banker, reporting from the Inter-American Development Bank meeting in Montevideo, Uruguay. I'm talking to Jean-Marc Aboussouan, the chief of the infrastructure division of the Inter-American Development Bank. Mr. Aboussouan, thank you for meeting with us. This annual meeting started with two very important themes, which are the development of infrastructure across the region and the creation of public-private partnership programs across the region. How do you think this topic has been received? And I know that the level of participation to this opening day was quite substantial. Do you think that all the topics have been addressed in the proper manner?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having me. Yes, it started with infrastructure and PPP, and I think it's a key topic in Latin America, a key topic for the bank, a key topic for all the governments. The infrastructure needs in Latin America are huge. For several years or decades, the level of the investments have been very low compared to what would be needed to maintain a strong economic development. At this point, the region is investing only about 2% of GDP. And if you compare that to Asia, it is very low. In order to just catch up with Asia, the region as a whole should invest about 4 to 6% of GDP. So there is a huge gap that the region needs to really fill in order to maintain that economic growth that we have seen in most of the region in the last decade. And so therefore, anything that relates to logistics, ports, airports, roads are key components in order to transport goods, export goods, import goods in a region that's driven by natural resources and other sectors. So it is important. It is also important to link the second seminar, as you mentioned, was PPP. The PPP framework, the public-private partnerships, are also key to the infrastructure sector. And I think when you talk PPP, it's very intimately related to infrastructure. The capacity of developing the investments in the region really, after what I called the easy projects, infrastructure projects of the late 90s, where you had some very good economically strong projects and financially strong projects were concession to the private sector. The new wave of projects that are extremely important for the economic development are there, but they need really a partnership between the public and the private sector in order to optimize their structuring, their financing, allocate the risk properly so that both the public and the private sector can feel comfortable with those projects. So PPP today in the region is a key component to the success. Now, PPP is not easy. PPP is not because we have a PPP framework that all the projects are going to pop up everywhere. PPP does require structuring, preparation, understanding of both sides. The governments need to understand how it works, and work with the private sector to have the proper allocations of risk, of resources to get a good project out. And then structuring a PPP is important, but you also need to make sure that the private sector will be able to finance it. One of the topic to bring the private sector, among other expertise of the private sector, is to also be able to bring financing, because the governments cannot handle such level of investments.
And of course, the activity of your division is to work with the private sector, and you've been acting as a catalyst to attract private sector funds towards these projects. Can you tell us some more information about the division and the level of involvement in the sector?
Sure. Yeah, let me clarify. I'm actually in charge of the infrastructure division of the private sector side of the bank, which is important. We do finance projects without benefiting from a sovereign guarantee, which is the other side of the bank business of the bank. So we do work in my division. We are not limited to just infrastructure, but infrastructure is a large part of it. We do work with projects and investments in infrastructure, roads, toll roads, airports, ports, and all renewable energy mainly. We have been working on that. The bank as a whole has approved about 60% last year was in infrastructure, which was a record year, just to show the importance of infrastructure. Just on the public side, the numbers are quite important. They approved about 6.6 billion in infrastructure. On the private side, we have approved less than that in terms of volume. Our approval of investments last year in sectors related to infrastructure that I mentioned earlier were about $600 million. So it's a much smaller amount, but we do operate differently in the public sector, because for each dollar that we bring in a project, we actually catalyze or mobilize 2 to 4 additional dollars. So when you convert my $600 million into how much support of investments it represents, it's about anywhere between 2.5 and 3 billion. So those numbers becomes relevant. The participation of the bank and our role is really to mobilize additional financing and not replace the private sector. I think it's a key topic.
2 years ago, when the IADB met in Cancun, there was a big capital increase that was approved of $70 billion, if I'm correct. What did that mean to your division?
That's a good question. Yes, the capital increase was approved last year. It was 70% increase, which represent $70 billion. It is in implementation phase after approval of all the congresses or most of the congresses that's required. What it means is that on the bank will, on a sustainable basis, is going to be able to increase its annual lending capacity from 7-8 billion to about 12-13 billion. So it's a substantial increase. Out of that increase, the private sector side of the bank will be increase its annual approval volumes from today about 1.5 billion to over the next couple of years to about $3 billion of approvals for the private sector, which if you translate again to what it represents in terms of investments being supported, you multiply anywhere between 2 and 4, so up to $12 billion. It could represent supporting up to $12 billion of investments in infrastructure. So it is, I think, substantial. Part of the annual the capital increase or some of the requirements that came with the capital increase, it was not free money, was for the bank to respond to certain key aspects or aspects that are key to the region, to the world, including anything related to climate change and anything related to energy efficiency and renewable energy. And the capital increase that is impacting the whole bank is also leading us to increase our efforts to be very active in renewable energy efficiency, and our approval amounts actually last year were really almost all renewable energy, and a lot of the countries in the region have actually, the governments have taken steps to promote renewable energy, to implement targets of carbon emissions reduction. So therefore we are also participating in this. And we are in Uruguay, so I cannot not mention that Uruguay has also gone through the passing of a PPP law, which is going to help on the infrastructure side to develop important projects. But also they promoted last year a very successful wind program, and they were able to attract a lot of investors, and the IADB is actually considering several projects to be financed in wind projects.
So it sounds like with the capital increase and the growing demand for infrastructure and interest in renewable energy, that you indeed are going to be very busy for the future as well. So thank you very much for your comments.
You are very welcome. It was a pleasure.